Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Hey, Joe, I'm sure you thought my investigation was completed last week, but you were wrong.
Joe Gimateo.
Diesel, Jeff Jarrett, Jim Neidhart, Owen Hart, Shawn Michaels. Jason, do you know what those guys have in common?
They're all Teamsters.
That's right. I'd like to remind our listeners, if you got it, a truck brought it. All those action figures, all those pro wrestling t-shirts, the fuel you put in your car to attend that wrestling show, a truck brought it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your reminder to please support your local Teamsters union. Thank you.
Paid for by Gary Sabaw.
I'm Jason Bartlett. That's no relation to Rob Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, we're going to send a very special shout out and thank you to our loyal listener in India, sticking with us week after week. Thank you, brudda. As well as our first South American listener in Brazil. We got a download down in Brazil. That's 4 of the 7 continents, gentlemen. We are a global phenomenon here. What do you think?
Nation of domination.
Blowing up.
Yeah, I was quite pleased to hear about that. I mean, I don't know how we're going to wind up getting Antarctica, but I'm pretty stoked about the other 2. I'm holding out for Australia and Africa. So in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on November 21st, 1994. This Raw was recorded at the Fernwood Resort in Bushkill, Pennsylvania, and features Vince McMahon and Jim Cornette on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Gladiator ready.
Yes.
All right, then let's get into it. Our opening sequence here, Raw starts up, and once more, we are not fucking around. We go straight into Vince yelling at us over Razor Ramon's entrance music. Razor comes out the entranceway, but before Razor can get 5 steps past the entrance, the Survivor Series team, the Teamsters, comprised of Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, Owen Hart, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, jump Razor Ramon from behind. I had to note here, it kind of sounds like the fresh Pennsylvania air out in Bushkill must have been getting to Vince. He's very funny sounding here during this opening part. Not at all sounding like his usual roaring self. The officials come out to try to break up this little kerfuffle here, and this is where we're going to cut to a quick commercial. And when we come back, Vince is back to sounding like himself, but things are looking a little funny. And it's not just Jim Cornette's loud yellow jacket. It really looks like Vince and Cornette are standing in front of a green screen with the crowd superimposed behind them. But then again, it might not be. It might be just some really bad lighting or something. I'm kind of confused about what's going on there, but I'm just going to relax and open up to it as it slides in. Joe, what did you think about this cock tease of a situation where we thought we were going to get Razor Ramon versus Big Daddy Cool Diesel?
Well, clearly Razor Ramon did not pay his dues with the Teamsters attacking him. Yeah, Vince is absolutely losing his mind and his voice. And you're right. It did appear as if they did the green screen thing, which, I mean, this is our 3rd episode in Bushkill. And, with these shows not being live, I think they probably did a lot of that. So it wasn't really that surprising. Another thing I noticed was Shawn Michaels did have his hand wrapped up. The reports of breaking his hand were obviously true.
Good catch. I didn't see that.
Yeah, the lead in here is just a little bit of a switch up. We thought we were going to get the big match first here, and they allude to the fact that maybe we won't be getting this match at all tonight. I wonder. I also thought it was a bit interesting. I think it's happened before, but it hasn't been in a while. We skipped the intro music.
Yeah, good call on that one, too.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
Once Vince and Cornette are done giving us the full review on what happened here with Razor Ramon and getting jumped from behind, we're going to, for real this time, go straight into our first match. Tatanka defeats Chris Kanyon via pinfall in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And we're going to kick this one off early. Chris Kanyon is this week's Jobber of the Week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. Chris Kanyon was born Christopher Morgan Kluckseritz on January 4th, 1970 in Queens, New York. He wrestled under the names Chris Morgan, Chris Kanyon with a C, Chris Kanyon with a K, Chris K, Chris Champagne Canyon, plain old Canyon with a K, and finally as Mortis. He began his training in late December 1991 at the Lower East Side Wrestling Gym in Manhattan, New York, under the trainers Pete Gonzalez and Bobby Bold Eagle. His first match was on April 5th, 1992, in Levittown, New York, at Island Trees Junior High School. He wrestled this one match only as Chris Morgan before changing his ring name to Chris Kanyon. In late 94 and early 95, Kanyon would wrestle as a jobber for the WWF, losing to stars like Shawn Michaels, Diesel, and of course Tatanka in this match. In 1995, Kanyon would join WCW and stay with the company right up until 2001, when they were purchased by Vince McMahon and the WWE. He started out in WCW as part of a jobber tag team named Men at Work. Their gimmick was they were two construction workers who turned wrestlers and wore jeans to the ring.
And did they have the safety dance as their entrance music?
Kanyon would cause his team to lose by taking measurements with his tape measure at inopportune moments.
Oh my gosh.
Throughout late 97 and into 98, Kanyon mostly feuded with Raven. He also started wearing a mask and going by the ring name Mortis. This continued until late 98, when he would drop the mask gimmick and join Wrath to form a new tag team, again using his old name Kanyon. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Kanyon would hit the height of his popularity as Chris Champagne Kanyon, a Hollywood persona who became accustomed to the life of luxury, indulging in women, expensive cars, and of course, a little bit of the bubbly. During this time, he would on and off again feud and team with wrestling legend Diamond Dallas Page. Kanyon made the transition in 2001 to the WWE after WCW was purchased by Vince. However, he would never really find his footing with the company. Very shortly after he began, he would start showing up only in B shows. And after an injury, would then be moved to the WWE's developmental promotion, Ohio Valley Wrestling, and he would stay there until his release from the company in 2004. Shortly after his WWE release, he began a gimmick in which he was an openly gay wrestler. Kanyon, very shortly after, told reporters and radio personalities that this was all a publicity stunt, but then almost immediately after retracted those statements and acknowledged that he was in fact gay. On April 5th, 2007, Kanyon announced his retirement. Sadly, on April 2nd, 2010, after many years of suffering from bipolar disorder, Chris Kanyon took his own life. Before his death, Chris was working on a book titled Wrestling Reality, and on November 1st, 2011, 7 months after his death, his book was released. Wrestling Reality covered Chris's struggle with being a closeted gay man in the tough business of wrestling.
Chris, a little bit of the bubbly Kanyon.
Jeez. That's a bit of a rough story there.
Yeah, it is. Tragic.
You do know who Wrath is, correct?
Yes.
The monster, Adam Bomb.
We'll get to him later.
Yeah, I was going to say, We've got plenty of time for Adam tonight.
Yes, sir. The leader of the bomb squad.
All right. So thank you very much, Ryan. Informative as always. Getting back to the match here, we're going to start off the match with the $1 Million Man leading Tatanka down to the ring. And Tatanka's gimmick has been fully culturally appropriated into the $1 Million Corporation gimmick. All we get of the old Tatanka is the brief, yay, yeah, yeah, before the $1 Million Man's music starts, with the $1 Million Man's colors, the $1 Million Man's projections, etc., etc. There's really not much left of the original true Tatanka here. He has completely sold out. Greatest heel turn in the history of professional wrestling, everybody. We're going to have a brief commercial break, and then the match gets started when we come back. Chris Kanyon is doing a great job of selling here, but I have to think that it can't be that hard since Tatanka only knows or uses 4 moves. While Tatanka is cycling through his repertoire in the ring, Vince and Cornette are at ringside talking about the first Thanksgiving and comparing it to Tatanka and Tatanka's non-representation of Native Americans. And at this point, we get a shot of a guy in the crowd sitting at the railing that appears to have a Lex Luger commemorative plate. I have no words.
Yeah, I thought maybe a cereal bowl or something.
Yeah, it looked like a plate to me. He was very proud of that plate and of that denim jacket that he had on.
Back in the ring, Kanyon sells the shit out of a clothesline. I mean, he was really doing a good job of making Tatanka look great here. After a brief recap of the Aldo Montoya situation that happened last week, we find out from commentary that apparently some guy of Portuguese descent in Somerville, Massachusetts, is vowing not to eat, is going on a hunger strike until his local cable provider gives him a Portuguese-speaking channel for free. Kanyon manages to get a couple pin attempts in to spice things up a little bit, but no dice. Finally, Tatanka hits a flying tomahawk chop and then a drop from a fireman's carry to get the 3 count. And stay tuned, folks. We're going to be back with Adam Baum in action in 30 seconds. But first, we're going to have a Survivor Series commercial. There are some video and audio clips from various black and white Western movies as the casket match is hyped. No mention of special guest troubleshooting referee Chuck Norris here at this point. We come back from the commercial to the bell ringing on the next match, but before we get to that, Ryan, what did you think about this Tatanka squash match?
It goes right back to why I picked Chris Kanyon as our jobber of the week, because, man, did he look good here. Like you said in your recap there, I mean, he was selling his ass off. Even Cornette at one point had to, rattle off like, man, he's threw off a moonsault and the reverse crucifix or something that he pulled off. And really impressive. He had that other off the second rope. He did like a little flying crossbody that he had a near fall on. A lot of really nice moves out of him here. If it wasn't for him, I'm sure it would have been a terrible match with Tatanka. Really, really thankful that we had Chris Kanyon here, because he was selling his ass off for Tatanka. And that's really all I have to say about this match.
Yeah, I can pretty much echo everything you said there. Kanyon really shows some impressive offense here a few times. A lot of the shit that he was doing was like stuff that you'd see today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially the Bartlett, you mentioned the selling of the clothesline. He does that full flip. I mean, that's like a basic move now, it seems.
Especially out of such a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy, small. Big, tall guy. Yeah, the match itself, I mean, he made it entertaining. And it was mentioned that the Smoking Guns beat the Heavenly Bodies at Sunday Night Slam. That's pretty much the only commentary note I have.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you guys. Tatanka, like I've said in the past, I have a love-hate relationship with Tatanka. This is a low point in that, but Chris Kanyon is the shining star of this match for sure. As far as the commentary goes, and this won't be the first time that I say this tonight probably, but Cornette is just a mile a minute. and I was having a hard time keeping up with a lot of the shit that he was saying when he was trying to banter with Vince here, but we're going to keep it moving. And like I said before, we're going to come back from commercial and go straight into our next match. Adam Bomb defeats Jason Arndt by pinfall in 2 minutes and 26 seconds. As Adam Bomb is coming to the ring, Vince mentions that he's the leader of the Bomb Squad. I don't know what that's in reference to at all, but Cornette does clarify that Adam Bomb is a member of the Survivor Series team Guts and Glory, like maybe he was correcting Vince or something. I have no idea what was going on with this Bomb Squad comment, unless he was referring to the 4 people in the audience that had Adam Bomb signs. Again, I had to note Cornette, mile a minute, hard to keep up with. He's just, he's going so fast with his quips, and the stuff that I could catch was witty and funny, but he's just so goddamn fast with it. Jason Arndt is in the ring waiting for Adam Bomb as Adam Bomb is coming down, and Cornette quips that where he's from, they say Jason Arndt as Jason Ain't. There is a lot of talk about Bob Backlund and comparisons made between Bob Backlund and George Foreman again, both being the age of 55 and George Foreman having recently won the championship, World Boxing Heavyweight Championship. And again, as Joe most famously noted, Adam Bomb keeps his maneuvers to the center of the ring. I can't unsee this now. Now that you pointed it out, Joe, it's all, every time I see an Adam Bomb match, that's all I see is him maneuvering in the center of the ring, and when he's not in the center, bringing his opponent back to the center of the ring for maneuvers. It's incredible. Like, I'm so happy that you pointed that out, but at the same time, it's all I can fucking see anytime he's in the ring.
That's what monsters do.
They need the room. Cornette is fucking frantic as he plugs Apes All Day on USA. It was a Planet of the Apes marathon on USA, and they were calling it Apes All Day on USA.
I remember those marathons.
I never watched them. I've never been a Planet of the Apes fan. There are at least 4 Adam Bomb signs in the crowd, as I pointed out before, and we get close-ups of all 4 of them. Adam Bomb finally lays in his modified pump handle slam to get a dominant one-handed pin. There's a brief pitch for Acclaim's Monday Night Raw video game while Vince and Cornette pretend to play against each other as The Undertaker and Yokozuna, respectively. It was kind of funny, but at the same time, it's kind of what we would call cringy here in the modern day. I don't really know what else to say about that. It was unique, for sure. As we're breaking to commercial, Vince announces that we're going to have that Razor Ramon Diesel match that was hyped but not delivered upon earlier, so that's a good thing. Since Ryan is the #1 Adam Bomb fan here at Wrasslin Raw, and we'll probably need some extra time to talk about how beautiful Adam Bomb is, Joe, why don't you just go first real quick and let us know what you thought of this match?
Well, I didn't see the signs that you're talking about, but shame on those people. Shame. Yeah, I agree with you with Jim Cornette, just spewing random shit during the whole thing. Doesn't care about the match at all. Kind of threw it off for me. Not like I really care, but man, it was pretty bad. The other thing that was mentioned was that Alundra Blaze lost to Bull Nakano in Japan.
I missed that shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can assume that Alundra Blaze is no longer the women's champion.
She must be on her way out, right?
Yeah, maybe. Unless it was a non-title match, but I kind of doubt it.
I was going to say she has to be champ because doesn't she take the women's belt with her when she goes? I thought that was a bit of a controversy. Because she was...
Oh, no. Oh, well, no, she didn't leave for WCW.
Or a monster car driving yet.
Yeah. She left a couple different times for different reasons. Monster car driving, getting new bolted on titties was one of them.
Fantastic work, by the way.
Yeah, right. Speaking of that, you guys should look up Salma Hayek at last night's Golden Globes. She had her Golden Globes out.
Always been one of my crushes.
That's it. I'll turn it over to the number one Adam Bomb fan, Ryan, who probably was one of those people holding up those signs.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was jerking off at home watching this, honestly.
So, to highlight my Adam Bomb fandom, I'd like to mention that Wrasslin Raw's own Bartlett got me a Christmas gift this year of a signed Adam Bomb picture, which now hangs very proudly in my cubicle at work. So thank you very much for that, Jason. Very, very much appreciate it.
You are so welcome. I knew you just needed a little bit of extra visual stimulation while you were at work.
Yeah, you know I drive off hate, so
seeing Adam Bomb just once a week is not enough.
Right. Anytime I'm stuck in some really nasty code, I just look up and I could push right through it. So it works out perfectly. To start off about this match, though, we haven't seen Adam Bomb in a little bit. I was happy to see he got a little bit of pyro here, a little nuke bomb effect that came up from behind him. Cornette says that his head blew up, either that or a bad case of the dandruff. This match was worthless, though. Again, like you, after Joe mentioned him keeping him in the ring, it's all I could notice. Every move is, how can I get this guy back into the middle of the ring?
Yes.
Yeah. Get back here, kid.
The match itself, forgettable completely. You guys talked about Cornette going a mile a minute. He did throw out a couple nice little nuggets in this match. One being Bob Backlund should work for the post office because one day he could just flip and bring an AK-47 to work. So
wow.
That's kind of, at this time, for some reason, there was a rash of postal workers going on killing rampages. That's why he would have brought that up. Also, Cornette calls George Foreman, calls him bald and fat, but Bob Backlund is in the best shape of his life. So a little dig at George Foreman there for not looking at in his prime, but that's it.
I'm willing to bet that George Foreman could probably beat the living piss out of Bob Backlund, though, at age 45.
I would think so.
I would hope so. And yeah, I'm just going to agree with both of you on this worthless match, but I will say that, Ryan, the pyro that you mentioned, they managed to get a mushroom cloud coming up behind him.
Yeah, no, it was a mushroom cloud.
Say what you will about everything else. I am personally pretty impressed that they are creative enough and technical in their pyro enough to create a damn near perfect mushroom cloud behind him. That's pretty cool.
It was impressive pyro. I agree.
So, that being said, we're going to move along here to our next segment, which was a Survivor Series update. This is just going to be a brief update. Specifically, Todd Pettingzoo is going to give us a full breakdown of the Lawler-Donk feud. It started with Lawler popping Dink's balloons, and then the trash can full of 25-pound weights, then the tricycle getting smashed, then Dink spraying Lawler in the face with midget piss, then a variation of the old pie in the puss when the clowns put a cream pie on Lawler's chair. That's when Queasy arrived. Then Wink, then Sleazy, then Pink, then Cheesy. There was a drive-by silly stringing. This feud is fucking crazy. Ryan, after seeing this synopsis of the feud between Donk the Clown and Jerry the King Lawler, briefly, and then Joe also, just briefly give us your thoughts on this whole storyline thus far.
I saw them starting this recap and I wanted to gouge my fucking eyes out because I saw where this was going. I'm thinking to myself, are we honestly going to get a full long recap of this retarded feud? Why must we be tortured and have to sit through this? That's it.
Well, the torture was glaring when I saw the first clip was from September 10th, and it's now November 21st. That's how long it's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen Duke the Dumpster since September 14th.
Yeah.
It's safe to say he's gone.
Yeah, maybe. Last thing for me, I still can't believe Jerry Lawler sat in that pie.
Look at what you did! You sat in a pie.
I agree with both of you. It's absolute bullshit. At this point, though, I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is all just a fever dream and we should just roll with it, but it's almost over regardless. I will throw out... What's that?
I was just saying, but what's that? What's next?
Yeah, we'll get there. Let me just point something out here. There was the trash can full of 25-pound weights that was going into the Lawler Duke the Dumpster payoff match. And then after that, the only time we've seen Duke the Dumpster is that he was standing in the background whenever the WWF superstars visited the New Jersey women's softball team and beat the shit out of him on the diamond. He was one of the guys that was standing in the background. That is the last time. So what was that, about 4 weeks ago? Something like that?
Yeah.
That's the last time that he has been seen. The Lawler match was the last time he's been in the ring, to the best of my recollection.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing him come out to clean up this garbage.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It can't get any worse, really. But then we get to King's Court. Oh, boy. In this episode of King's Court, there's Jerry the King Lawler, and all 3 of the King Midgets are in the ring, and they haven't even started talking yet. It's already fucking horrible. There are clown midgets hiding under the ring with super soakers, though. And whenever the King Midgets and the King start to talk themselves up, getting ready for Survivor Series, the Clown Midgets start popping up randomly from different sides of the ring to squirt the royal family with midget piss, distracting them from what they're saying. They start to kind of argue with each other, thinking that one of the other is spitting on people, and just it gets a little confusing. But then finally, Donk himself shows up with 2 super soakers full of midget piss, and then it's a full-on super soaker piss party. The King and King Midgets are apparently paralyzed and unable to retaliate because of the super soakers full of midget piss. It is impossible for them to fight back or do anything other than hide behind the King's Court furniture. They're terrified of these super soakers. Donk and his midgets leave as we break for commercial. Joe, on a scale of -5 to 5, how glad are you that this only lasted about 1.5 minutes?
I'm going to put a stop to this for the sake of our 4 listeners. The only good thing from this was flashbacks of how great Super Soaker water guns were back in the day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't want to talk about this. Sorry.
No, completely understandable.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to say is thank Friar Ferguson. It was so short.
Yeah, thank Friar Ferguson for that.
And the end is near.
Yes, thank Friar Ferguson yet again. So, in the interim, between this and our next segment, we're going to be hawking the opinion line. Call in to let us know your opinion on which submission hold is better, the crossface chicken wing or the sharpshooter. Now, they are going to sweeten the pot, though, because those special controversial superstar interviews that are part of this are now going to be chosen randomly every 5 minutes. So you have to call back and reset that call clock back to the first $1.49 if you want to hear different information. What was that you had said last week, Ryan? 1-900 Shameless?
That's it. 1-900 Shameless. And there it is again.
I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say about this. I don't really want to dignify it that much anymore because hopefully we're going to get less of this after Survivor Series whenever we find out which one of these moves submission holds is better. Or at least hopefully they're going to change up the subject material.
Yeah, let's hope.
See, I knew you wouldn't have much to say about this, Joe, because you're just itching to get to the next segment. It's an IRS promo vignette, and yes, I have written it down verbatim. For the last 4 weeks, I've been conducting an investigation. As you remember, it all started in front of the funeral home, and here we're going to have a couple of flashback segments detailing the stories thus far. I knew that my instincts were correct when I accused the recently departed so-called poor soul of cheating on his taxes, and I was right. After doing a quick check of his September 15th quarterly taxes, I found out that he tried to pass off his little girl's birthday dinner as a business expense. so I enforced the penalty immediately. Although it may have seemed that my penalties were a little headstrong, or maybe a little stiff, continual infractions were dug up, and as a result, it was my duty to enforce the penalty to the fullest. So welcome back once again to IRS's Tales from the Crypt. I'm sure the lot of you thought my investigation was completed last week. Well, you were wrong, because although I've been doing a lot of digging lately, there is still one thing outstanding. When I investigate, I leave nothing, and I mean nothing, unturned. The tax cheat that once occupied this place of rest is, shall I say, homeless, and it's his own fault. His blatant disregard to pay has led to an enormous sum of back taxes that he still owes. That's why I'm being forced to repossess his final resting place, his burial plot, in order for him to pay his debt. Remember, everyone must pay his taxes, or everyone might be left with an empty feeling. And then IRS starts pounding a sign in next to the empty grave that reads property of IRS. Rest in peace. And there is finally a mention from Vince McMahon at commentary about the seeming overlap of IRS's actions and The Undertaker specifically. Up until this point, there haven't been really that many direct references to The Undertaker during all of this, although it's been blatantly obvious because IRS has been skulking about a funeral home and then the graveyard where he is here. But, Joe, as our resident auditing expert, are you as thorough in your investigations as IRS is?
If this guy had the IRS coming after him this hard, I don't think he would be a poor soul. I would assume he lived a life of luxury to have the IRS coming after him that hard. Okay, this one made a little bit more sense because it transitions into an IRS wrestling match, I guess, but it's getting exhausting having this every week.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you. I wish I was the poor soul in the casket and could just skip over this. It still doesn't make any sense, though. We're in a few days going to have the Yokozuna Undertaker match, yet we're getting a IRS promo shot at the Undertaker days before this match. Why?
Yeah, it's definitely a step down, but Undertaker is about to face a recent former champion in Yokozuna.
And you have this mid-carder spitting promos at him.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't have any explanation or justification for any of it. I just love torturing you guys by reading all of these promos verbatim. I thoroughly enjoy it. And, I do like IRS. He's not like the greatest or anything. He is a good wrestler. In the ring, he is technically good, but I sometimes think that if they're not going to just stick to his normal just coming out and bashing people and calling them tax cheats and then wrestling kind of shtick, then they just really shouldn't be doing this. He's not good at this kind of promo. I really like that they are getting out of the arena and like filming stuff and going on location and setting up scenes with like the casket half sticking out of the ground covered in dirt clods. Like the fact that they're doing all of this, I think, is very cool and creative and entertaining. It's just they've got like the wrong person to work with in it.
In the wrong storyline currently, yeah. Yeah. If only all of this creativity could have been directed at somebody else. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who else it could have been, but
Mabel.
Can you just imagine Mabel in the fucking graveyard standing next to a dug up grave? Like, I dug him up and I ate him.
With all of IRS's talk about repossessing things, where's the Repo Man? Maybe it would have been a good tag team.
Yes, that is actually a great, great thought. That's perfect. That makes perfect fucking sense.
It does, yeah. Missed opportunity there, Vince.
Yeah, like he could have had the Repo Man operating the backhoe, digging up the casket. Yeah.
To think back, they should have been a long time tag team at this point. They should have been together. IRS and the Repo Man.
Yeah.
It's peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to keep it moving along here because in our next match, We have IRS defeating Matt Hardy by pinfall in 2 minutes and 52 seconds. And yes, folks, that's right. You heard me correctly. Matt Hardy of future WWF fame. We've talked about him before. We actually just talked about him last week briefly, and we'll get to a little bit of that here. But Matt Hardy is already waiting in the ring for IRS as he's coming down the entryway. I had to note, I have to say here, this is something that I never really thought I'd be saying. But I'm kind of getting really tired of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and his ring music. He's just everywhere in these episodes and kind of getting over it. IRS gets on the microphone and repeats his line about everyone paying their taxes. And then directly at the Spanish announce table, Ed Trucco and Carlos Cabrera yelling that it doesn't matter what language they speak, everyone pays. I thought that was kind of cool. The camera guys around ringside, they do a fair job of hiding it, but I'm noticing a lot of empty seats in the back as they're panning around trying to get in a little bit of audience reaction for IRS here. The match is going on in the ring, but Vince is going to talk about Mary Tyler Moore trying to free a lobster named Spike, and that's worth talking about instead of this match. Also, Clowns R Us, The Undertaker, Paul Bearer, and a couple others are going to be at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Oh yeah, back in the ring, a clothesline is all it takes to put Matt Hardy down for the 3 count. I could just, faintly in the background, I could hear Gary Sabaw yelling, "Now fucking pay me." Ryan, what do you think about the fact that, besides that weird green screen type shot earlier, we haven't seen a single camera angle or shot of Vince McMahon or Jim Cornette at ringside?
Yeah, maybe they're still having some of those technical difficulties from last week. I don't know. As far as this match goes, though, as they showed Matt Hardy in the ring, all I could think about was Gary Sabaw. I was like, man, poor Matt. He's only going home with $50 in his pocket after this match. The rest of it's going to the Italian Stallion. I mean, who cares if you've paid the IRS? Did you pay the Gary Sabaw tax is the real question, As soon as Matt walks backstage, I'm thinking he's just back there. "Hey, kid, where's my cut? It'd be a shame if I were to break your legs, huh?" Oh, poor Matt. As far as the match goes, it's an okay match. It's what we get out of IRS. Matt Hardy does a serviceable job as jobber here, but as we seem to get at least one of these matches a week, this is the magical match where Vince and whoever else is on commentary with him this week completely forget about the match, and they just don't talk about it at all. Vince is rambling on about making sure your grandma has pay-per-view ready for you for Thanksgiving and the Queen of England winning 10 pounds in the British National Lottery. And if Princess Di's getting her cut, I mean, it's
Spike the Lobster.
Yeah, Spike the Lobster. It's all over the place. They don't care about the match, but it was okay. It was fine.
Much like the crowd in Bushkill, I went and took a piss during this match and missed some of it. But one thing I noticed was there was a sunset flip by Matt Hardy, which was definitely a 3 count, but the ref had to stop so that IRS could kick out of it, which I thought was funny. I don't know. I still enjoy seeing guys like Chris Kanyon and especially Matt Hardy. I mean, Matt Hardy went on to be a fucking legend later on. So, I mean, I always enjoy seeing that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you guys here. Serviceable is probably the best adjective for this entire match and everyone in it. It killed 2 minutes and 52 seconds. And it was a jobber match. So there you go. What more can you ask for? Next up, we're going to have a Survivor Series report. And there's the CGI sequence opening, but there's no Vince narration this time. Todd Pettingzoo is going to bring us up to speed. He's dressed appropriately for it in a sleek-looking windbreaker. He reminds us that we're going to have the Razor Ramon Diesel match as soon as this Survivor Series report is over. This isn't another Wrasslin pay-per-view. This is the WWF, the global leader in pay-per-view television. That means that absolutely anything can happen as some of the greatest athletes in the world battle for supremacy. Pettingzoo is going to recap the Backlund Hitman Hart feud here. And on Superstars this last weekend, apparently, on the Heartbreak Hotel, Bob Backlund became a raving lunatic that has lost all touch with reality. We are going to see this match less than 48 hours from now, as long as we all call our local cable providers. We're going to get a casket match promo, but it's shot like a movie trailer. I thought this was kind of cool. Very artistic. They got some cool looking shots of everybody there. Yokozuna, The Undertaker, Chuck Norris. And it ends with, from the director of WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam comes Survivor Series 1994. And then Petting Zoo. Can you imagine the entire $1 million corporation coming down and challenging Chuck Norris? That could happen. Anything could happen. Chuck Norris could punch a hole straight through King Kong Bundy. Bam Bam Bigelow could attack Chuck Norris, get placed under citizen's arrest, and then get shot by the police while refusing to cooperate and assaulting officers. Anything can happen because it's the WWF, everybody, and it's on pay-per-view. We're going to have an Undertaker promo. Paul Bearer is apparently very pleased that Chuck Norris is going to be there. He's practically giddy the way that he shakes his head and just talks real fast. It was pretty funny. Only one man will walk away. The other will roll because he'll be in the casket and he'll be fucking dead. Petting Zoo is going to rehash the Survivor Series matches and the rosters for each here now. I'm not going to repeat them. We all know them already. If you wait any longer to order, you might get locked out, so order now. Joe, what are your final thoughts on the lead up to Survivor Series as summarized by Todd Petting Zoo?
Too much Petting Zoo in this episode already. This is the second or third time.
Heavy dose of the zoo.
Heavy dose. The Heartbreak Hotel interview clip from Superstars was pretty bizarre. Just Bob Backlund just screaming.
He looked legitimately crazy.
Yeah, might have been his best work so far, I think. And they didn't show the whole thing, which was a little disappointing, but
yeah,
whatever. Ryan, you're more of a football fan. Did you catch that they were using the NFL primetime song?
Yes. As soon as it started, I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, you'd think that there would be a copyright on it or something, but
maybe there wasn't at that time.
Yeah. The Paul Bearer and Undertaker promo, I thought, of course, was good. It's always good. But I thought this one was a lot different because it had more of just a plain background and a little too much lighting. A lot different from the other ones that they did with the boiler room and dark background. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have noted here.
As far as what I have to talk about, I was a little disappointed when they started to show some of the footage from the 1-2-3 Kid, Bob Backlund, that unfortunately we didn't get any extra footage that we didn't see already. So that was sad. The only other thing worth mentioning here is the Undertaker Paul Bearer promo, which was very short, but wonderful as always. I mean, it was nothing very long at all, but we did get that little bit of Paul Bearer's gobbler neck jiggling.
And talking about Chuck Norris.
So all is well in the world. Then you just get the Undertaker quickly saying to Yokozuna, it's time you pay the Reaper. And then that's it. We wrap it up. So it was a nice short promo.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you guys here. Far too much Petting Zoo in this episode, and that just giddy, girlish Paul Bearer neck jiggling was just pure gold.
Hypnotic.
Yeah, it really was. Something that I have to note that, and I tried to make it clear in my little recap there, but something that just really bothers me, and I'm not trying to be overly negative about this, but it's just so disingenuous, is the repeated anything can happen. It's not just this Survivor Series report. It's been the past how many Survivor Series reports. I can't remember if it's in the exact same wording, but just about all of the SummerSlam reports going into SummerSlam, it's just this constant theme of anything can happen. And it's like, yeah, but it really doesn't.
I think it's been an all-around thing, because they say that on Raw, too.
It seems to me like there was some business meeting where they said, this is the mantra we're pushing right now.
Yeah.
That anything could happen.
Make sure you get these words in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, though, that I am glad the amount of new generation, old generation references have gone down. So that is a good thing. Unfortunately, we're supplanting it with this anything can happen thing temporarily. I'm sure after Survivor Series, we'll probably get a lot less of it until later on whenever we're going into the Royal Rumble. But I just wanted to note that because it's anything could happen. That could happen. Dink versus Jerry Lawler. That could happen. No, it fucking couldn't. Shut up, petting zoo. Real quick, we're going to do a promotional consideration paid for by the following. And we get a cool shot of a sneering Razor Ramon and then a equally cool view of a smoky Undertaker standing there and Big Daddy Cool, the Hitman, WWF Raw is War video game by Acclaim. This commercial, I mean, it was short. It couldn't have been any more than 15, 20 seconds max. But in its shortness, it was also pretty cool. I can imagine, I don't remember seeing this as a kid. I can imagine if I had seen this as a kid, that would have got me fucking psyched up. I would have wanted that game. That was cool.
I have to ask, is this the same game as the one they plugged earlier in this episode?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they call it Raw is War here, but they called it Monday Night Raw video game before. I didn't know if there were two games at one time or...
No, I don't think so. The only difference was earlier they made it clear that they were playing the Sega Genesis version. So maybe that was the discrepancy.
Yeah.
Either way, by 1994 standards, that was a pretty good game.
I mentioned last week, I remember playing this game for hours. It was a really good game.
Yeah. Well, just the the little spot earlier in the night where they were pretending to play it against each other. Just the simple fact that you could pick attributes and assign attributes to your characters was a pretty big deal back in 94. I mean, now games have stat adjustment across the board and just about everything. But for 1994, that was a pretty big deal. So this commercial is going to take us into our final match of the night. Razor Ramon and Diesel fighting to a double disqualification in 11 minutes. Diesel enters the arena with the full Teamsters team. Everyone's with him. And we get a shot of a kid in the audience that has a pair of Shawn Michaels style flip-up sunglasses. I'm pretty jealous of that. I would have liked to have had a pair of those.
Dwayne Wayne.
That's his name. Yes. I was trying to think of that guy because that was the Cosby Show spinoff. The eldest Cosby daughter went off to college, and he was like one of the people that lived in the dorm with her.
Different world.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was fucking just clawing at my brain because I knew the answer to it, but I couldn't think of it. It was right on the tip of my tongue.
Are you talking about the kid that had the Dwayne Wayne shades on in the crowd?
Yeah. Yeah, I was jealous of those.
Yeah.
But they weren't just Dwayne Wade glasses. They had that, like, Shawn Michaels bling. Made him look like a miniature pair of Twankies.
Yeah.
The bad guys Survivor Series team follows Razor out, and Razor jumps straight into the ring to get into it. There's no fucking around with Razor. Razor is really taking it to Diesel, and they quickly get to a stalemate where the respective Survivor Series teams get kind of arranged around the outside of the ring, and then the match starts in earnest with just Razor and Diesel in the ring together. Cornette calls Razor Ramon a Cuban hothead, like Desi Arnaz Sr. Yeah. Cornette, you got some splaining to do, because most people watching, or at least the target audience, all of the kids out there that they're trying to get with some of their advertising here aren't going to know who the fuck Desi Arnaz is. Diesel and Razor work really, really well together throughout this entire match. I mean, I'm not going to do a full move-by-move breakdown here because this match isn't necessarily good enough to be a match of the year candidate like some of the other candidates are that deserve move-by-move breakdowns. But suffice it to say, they are really fucking good working together here. They sell for each other. They just, all of it. there are some hints and suggestions from commentary that there might be a bigger separation happening between Diesel and Shawn Michaels. Little tidbits dropped about altercations and somebody hitting the other. And I noticed that there are a lot of golden razor blade necklaces being held up in the audience. And again, I am jealous of this merch that's floating around out there. I would kick one of these kids' asses for a golden razor blade necklace. That'd be pretty fucking cool. There continues throughout the match to be various interferences from the teams at ringside. They go back and forth, creating some exterior drama while the storytelling is going on in the ring simultaneously. Cornette is frantic in his commentary again, spitting lines and rhymes like bullets. The Bulldog is at ringside yelling, "Come on, Razor! Come on! Come on, Razor!" the whole time.
Excellence of execution.
The Head Shrinkers are there taking part in cheering Razor on, and I have to wonder when they stopped being mindless savages that don't understand English. Diesel and Razor both attempt to apply their finishers to no avail. Things start to get hairy with interference from the outside, extremely hairy. First Double J, then the Bulldog, then Owen Hart are all taking part in the action in the ring. And after an extremely good match, things do take the expected turn of devolving into a brawl in the ring. The ref calls for the bell, and both Razor Ramon and Diesel are DQ'd because of the actions of their teammates. We fade to black on Vince yelling about the chaos in the ring, and that's going to be it for this episode. I have to finally note, though, that as I hinted at earlier, we did not once actually see Vince McMahon and Jim Cornette at ringside. I think they just plain weren't there for it, and they dubbed over their commentary after the fact. I think that explains why we don't see them. I think that explains why we have their one green screen scene at the very, very beginning. And I think that's why Jim Cornette is a coked up lunatic throughout all of this. That's just a joke. I'm not trying to literally insinuate that Jim Cornette was coked up, but he was certainly behaving like a raving lunatic the entire time, speaking a mile a minute. But yeah, that's my final opinion on all of that. They weren't there for any of it. So, that being said, Ryan, what did you think of the payoff to the Razor Diesel tease we had to start with this episode of Raw?
Yeah, like you mentioned, what a fantastic match out of these two. Very entertaining way to end Raw. I did have to note, right as Diesel was making his way to the ring, we got another dot matrix print off sign that said, "Watch out, Big Daddy Diesel," with a big semi truck on there. I had to mention that again. That was beautiful. I think it kind of goes along with, this Diesel Ramon match and how good it was that anytime we get a match between two members of the so-called clique, they really do seem to work well together. Yeah. So, and this is a example of it. Towards the beginning of the match, you have Diesel, he's hammering on Ramon, and it looks so realistic, him just pounding on his back and Ramon selling the hell out of it. It looked fantastic. I really loved the one point, though. It was about midway through the match, and Diesel puts Ramon in a sleeper hold to kind of catch his breath for a second. But the moment he puts him in the sleeper hold move, the camera cuts to the Anvil cheering, like he's cheering on the fact that he's putting him in the sleeper hold move to catch his breath. I thought that was kind of funny. Cornette then brought up something about Ramon might need David Crosby's new liver and wonders if he ordered it with some onions. Vince seemed to be a little taken back by that. He didn't like it, I don't think. But the match ended, kind of how we expect with the go-home show to end, with just pandemonium in the ring. So it's disappointing with two superstars like this that you're going to get such a no count. We get nothing here. It's not a clean ending by any means, but very expected. So I'm not going to take that much away from it, because this is kind of what you get even today, leading up to a pay-per-view. It usually ends with just craziness happening in the ring. everyone that's involved in the big main Survivor Series event match is in the ring killing each other here. So all around great match. They looked awesome together.
Yeah, my first comment is the way that this show ended seems to be what we're accustomed to now with wrestling, where, the big match, the hot ending, as opposed to the past several weeks, we've been seeing the big marquee match to kick off the show. Nice little change up there, even though they teased us with it earlier. A couple things on Diesel here. I think this is the best that Diesel has looked so far. He's selling very well. There's some great storytelling between the two of them. They're really taking their time, making it work. Obviously, they had a brief history of working together before this, so that probably helps. Spoiler alert, Diesel is going to have a run as champion, and it's known as one of the worst times in WWE history. But I think a lot can be said with what were they giving him to work with during that time?
I would not necessarily blame Diesel on the fact.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is proof that if you give him something to work with, he could certainly make it work during that time. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this match, and I loved it as a go-home ending. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and I think it's been pretty clear almost every time we see Diesel in the ring, he's getting better and better. So, yeah, it's really, I've mentioned it before, but it's really great to be able to, in almost live time, watch Diesel's progression here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of you on just about everything you've said. I wanted to point out that I think, well, again, I do agree with your points on Diesel and Razor here, and especially about, Ryan, your comments about the Click, because one of our match of the year candidates is Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon in the ladder match. But I think a bigger thing to take away from this is, for the first time that I can think of, and by all means, please correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time, we've seen Diesel facing off with somebody that can almost look him in the eye. And not quite. Diesel definitely has a couple inches on Razor Ramon, but not that many. The usual gimmick that we get out of Diesel is the monster. And he's always paired up, he's paired up with Shawn Michaels, who's a good 1.5 foot shorter than him. But then they're always against jobbers. We always see them against these fucking runts just to emphasize the size and the power of Diesel. But in this case, we have him going up against Razor Ramon, who is equally as powerful and almost as tall. I don't know if you guys noticed it whenever they were in the ring against each other, but it looked like an equal footing, toe-to-toe, punch for punch, just knockdown, drag-out brawl. And that's what I loved about this match. There wasn't that oversized squash feeling to it like you get with every other Diesel match, because that's pretty much all we've seen out of Diesel so far, are for the majority, are squash matches. But in this match, we really had, like you said, Razor Ramon there to really wring the talent out of Diesel and bring it out, so that it wasn't just, he's a monster. He's in there with an equal now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. The fact that Razor Ramon was actually able to believably toss Diesel around the ring.
Yes.
Really, really added to this match and elevated it to something we haven't seen with Diesel before.
Yeah, it gave us a whole new perspective on Diesel, because if you think about it, getting back to that whole monster gimmick, Diesel really hasn't had to sell for anybody, because he's the unstoppable monster. He's the 7-foot behemoth. But in this match, we get to see Diesel's more advanced storytelling techniques in the way that he sells for Razor Ramon. And it's like you say, Razor Ramon was literally tossing him around in the ring, and that's something that we have not seen before out of Diesel, and just really refreshing. I really do believe it's a whole new perspective on Diesel that we've been opened up to with this match with Razor Ramon. So that is going to be the end of the episode. Highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
I have a couple highlights. Number one is getting to see Matt Hardy and Chris Kanyon both as jobbers in this episode. I think they They were both pretty good.
Yeah.
Second highlight is the go home ending. I thought they nailed it. I will go ahead and say I didn't really give a shit about the Teamsters versus the bad guys before this episode, and now I'm actually looking forward to watching that match. My low light is Jim Cornette's commentary throughout the entire episode. I thought it was just awful.
For me, my highlights really follow along with yours pretty well. I have my first highlight as the final match. It's a good, high-profile match to get us ready for Survivor Series, and we couldn't ask for much more out of a go-home match here. So I was very, very satisfied with it. And the other thing was Chris Kanyon. I didn't necessarily mark down Matt, but Chris Kanyon really stuck out in his match. He looked phenomenal. So he had to be marked as a highlight for me there. My low light, again, the midget shit. I said I would bring it up every time it's here, and here it is again. But this time with squirt guns. Well, it's my low light, and thankfully we'll be done with it very, very soon, and I won't have to mention it anymore.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to add, since you said that, I'm going to add a highlight. Highlight number one for me is the fact that this is the last show before Survivor Series. This is the go-home show, as you both have mentioned, and that means that we're just one episode of Wrasslin' Raw away from this being done and over with, this fucking storyline midget bullshit. Oh, God, I hate it. But that being said, the other highlight of the night is going to be Razor Ramon and Diesel. Joe, I can't quite get with you on being excited for the Survivor Series match because I'm not a fan of that particular gimmick. You know, the whole 5-on-5 it could wind up being 5-on-1. Anything can happen kind of shit. It just doesn't do it for me. But Razor Ramon and Diesel does do it for me. Excellent fucking match. I can't put it over enough. The low light, again, it's to be assumed that the midget shit is a low light, but I'm going to have to agree with Joe on this one. Jim Cornette on commentary. It pains me to say that because ordinarily I am a fan of Jim Cornette. I like Jim Cornette in small doses, though. And this was just 48 minutes and change of, I don't even know what the hell to call it, but it was too much. That's for goddamn sure.
I'm just not a fan of his commentary during this time period. Like, I like him as a manager a lot.
And some of this commentary could have been fine, but he really needed to slow it down a lot.
We were briefly talking about it before we went to recording the podcast here, but back in, let's see, what would that have been? That span towards the beginning of the year, where Randy Savage was out and Vince McMahon had a rotating guest host and commentary. Jim Cornette did guest host on commentary once or twice, and he wasn't like this during that. He was just a normal guest commentator, and he was actually kind of enjoyable. It wasn't perfect, or it wasn't Bastion Booger or anything like that, but
yeah, it wasn't noticeably bad.
Yeah,
like
this. And I have to say that I really do think it's because they recorded this after the fact and then dubbed it over the show. I think this was Jim just getting flustered and cutting a 48-minute promo as opposed to doing ringside commentary. Because I can't believe that if he were actually sitting at ringside that he would have talked like this. He didn't talk like this before whenever he was sitting at ringside.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, it's who knows at this point, but that's my theory on it. So, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around November 21st, 1994?
Well, I hate to disappoint, but I think Dave Meltzer is preparing himself for the Survivor Series because he didn't have much to report on this week. Sunday Night Slam, we talked about that briefly last week.
Yeah.
So Sunday Night Slam was a show that they would do the Sunday before. They would air it the Sunday before the pay-per-view, or they would air it the same day as the pay-per-view before the pay-per-view started. So it was always Sunday. This Survivor Series happens to be on a Wednesday. It was a 1 hour show this time. And according to Meltzer, the older format was 2 hours. So that's really all I know about it. But it got me thinking, I wonder if that's why Vince lost his voice. I kind of wonder if the beginning of this episode was from that, but
yeah,
who knows? I don't know if Sunday Night Slam was a live show or not. So he reported on that. He has a raging hard boner for the Warrior coming back. Like it seems like every week, Dave Meltzer just keeps saying there's rumors of the Warrior returning, but I mean, we kind of know that he doesn't. So other than that, he didn't really have anything to report. So like I said, he must be preparing himself for the Survivor Series write-up.
He dialed in a go home article and is sitting back to order his order from his local cable provider
and Domino's Pizza.
Yeah. It's kind of sad that we haven't had any Domino's pitching going on. It must not have worked out for SummerSlam.
Is there a sponsor for this? I haven't heard any mention of.
I haven't heard anything since that one with Domino's.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Joseph. That's it, folks. This has been the Go Home episode of Wrasslin' Raw. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit by searching up the handle Wrasslin' Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. Also, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin' Raw popping up in your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. Hit us with a 5-star review or 4 3/4 if you're Dave Meltzer, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week on Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to get into Survivor Series 1994. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin' Raw.